Is government destroying the creation of small business? Does it sound overly dramatic? Well, thousands of reports have been written, millions of words have been spoken about how entrepreneurs reduce unemployment and drive economies. This is Tonight. I'm Bruce Whitfield, and tonight we find out why one particular entrepreneur is struggling to register his business. Joining me is Commissioner at the Companies and Intellectual Property Commission, otherwise known as CIPC, which registers companies, or at least is supposed to. That's Astrid Ludin, and Tlotliso Mphuthi, who's from OakGrove Investment Holdings. You can't call yourself that because you're not registered. OakGrove Investment Holdings doesn't exist, Tlotliso. What's going on?
Yes, it doesn't exist. So I wanted to open up a business. I'm selling a few things. So I wanted to go into a new market. But for me to go in there, I have to have my business registered. So that's why I went into the CIPC website.
When did you do this?
I first did this in September
2014.
2014.
Right.
And then somehow something
You did this
happened.
online, I'm assuming?
Online, yes.
Okay.
Online from the PC, registered, and then...
Was it an easy process?
It was easy. It wasn't something that I could have failed on. So I went in there, did that, registered. They wanted a few things, ID numbers and all of that, supplied. And then it was quiet after that.
Okay, so you submit your documents. What should at that point happen, Astrid Ludin?
Well, I think Tlotliso did it on the old website.
Okay.
And so the processes were slightly different.
Okay.
What would happen now is he would submit his information to us and he would get an SMS confirming.
All right,
the
let's
process.
push pause there then. Okay, so you're on the old website. That's your fault, so you should have waited. You submitted the details. September, everything went quiet. When did you follow up?
I followed up, I think it was October or so.
Okay.
Tried calling the call center, but the call center...
Did you not get did somebody answer the phone? Or?
No answer, nothing.
Okay, so you found the call center in October.
Yes.
When next did you try and follow up?
So I followed up in October and November.
Right.
And in December, I didn't want to go in there because it's festive. And then January, I decided, you know what, I've waited for so long. Let me just try another one.
So you registered again?
Yes, using a different name this time. But the one with the second name seemingly is not appearing in the system now. The old one, I think, is hanging in the system.
Okay.
Yes.
And can we pause there? I mean, if you've taken us pretty much through the story as things have transpired so far, it's the old system, Astrid, you've said that. The fact that nobody answered the phone, there's no old or new phone system there. It's somewhat disappointing.
No, but when we chatted about this a bit earlier, you mentioned that you found a call center. And the reality is that at this stage, we don't have a call center. We have staff answering their phones. And so I think that's...
So you found a number, which was listed where?
On their website.
Okay.
I think it was an 086 number.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. It is a phone, it's a central number. So you phone a central number and then it gets routed through to the back office to various people, depending on which option you choose. So I think that's the reality. What we realize is, our strategy is electronic, and I'm very pleased because you are exactly the kind of person we are hoping to be accessible to through the internet, and so you're obviously very comfortable with it. But the problem is when you have the trouble arises when you have a problem. And so I think in your case, and I think it's quite a natural response for people to try and phone us. So it is something that we're addressing.
Have you ever had a problem with your DSTV, Astrid? And then you phone the calls, and they're lovely people.
Yes.
But you know what it's like. You could sit there, and they give you thousands of options for your mobile device, for your computer, for your tablet. You want to speak to a human being. I mean, you get to a point, once you believe you've done the right thing, October last year, by November, nobody's come back to you, you pick up the phone, nobody answers. You pick up the phone again, nobody answers. It's easy for entrepreneurs to become disheartened.
Yes, and I think, the biggest issue is right now, we've spent a lot of time on refining the systems, developing new channels. You can register a business through FNB, through Standard Bank soon. You can go to a self-service terminal, which is an automated process, or you can go to the website. So we've given people choice. And all that choice is mainly electronic. So that is the reality of where we need to go.
Slipped through the cracks. You have looked into his case. Where did it go wrong?
Well, I think the problem is we need to examine where the problem is, and I think this is probably the biggest issue is how do you get hold of us when you run into trouble. So we encourage people to send us emails, but if you don't
Did you
know
try
that,
Emails, no.
You didn't try emails, okay?
but so, I mean, we clearly need to be, you need to know how to get hold of us. And your instinct would be to call us. So we need to address that problem. And we've looked at all the various options. We are putting in place an interim measure now before the end of March, and we'll have to put in place a longer term measure. But I think his particular case is very unusual because I don't usually have a problem. His problem was with name reservations, and generally our name reservations team is very quick. The turnaround time on that, it might vary sometimes. I think it's a little bit slower at the moment, so it might be 7 days.
Yeah.
But there's no reason why a transaction that you submitted on the 9th of January, it should have been processed by now. So I think we need to just understand
but what is
where the problem is.
Does he face a problem? Does Tlotliso face a problem now in terms of going back onto the system and trying to refile his October application? Because somewhere the name exists in a system. Is it not going to chuck it out and say, terribly sorry, this name is in the process of being registered? A little bit like trying to register for Gmail or something like that.
If it's in the system and it hasn't been processed, it won't be chucked out because he's made a new application. But what will happen is he'll pay again for a new application. It's only 50 Rand, but still
It's
50
his 50
Rand adds
bucks.
up. Yes, no,
It's his
I
50
agree.
bucks.
I
It's
agree.
his 50
So,
bucks.
so I think we've made a lot of improvements in a lot of areas. The big issue now is to ensure that people can get hold of us.
Well, what will happen this time around? Because you're going to email me and tell me if it works this time around. He goes back on this afternoon and he goes and he registers in the same way.
No, I think what he needs to do is he's already paid. Has this transaction been deducted from your customer account?
Yes.
So then it's in the system.
Okay.
Then we need to just examine where it is, and it's either IT or the name reservations people. So what he now needs to do is send me an email or I've given him another email address.
You've been very good about sharing your Ludin at cips.co.za or gov.za.
CO.za.
You see, I've just shared it again. But you have been very good about being that transparent. There was a period of chaos at CIPS that you stepped into was it 5 years ago?
It's almost 4.
Almost 4 years ago. It feels such a long time. Have you? Because at that stage there were huge backlogs, absolutely huge backlogs. You introduced new IT systems. There was fraud. There was corruption. The IT system, people had stolen hundreds of millions of Rand from CIPS at the time. You got a new IT system. That new IT system has now been replaced by a newer IT system.
Well, we haven't. We've had to do, and we like this analogy in the organisations, building an aeroplane while we're flying it. So it's the same thing that Eskom has to do now, right?
Yes, that's a terrible comparison.
It's the same comparison.
CIPS and Eskom. Okay, now we know how much trouble you're in.
5 years of maintenance, and you have to keep the lights on during that period. So that's pretty much what we've had to do. We've had to continue providing a service while we keep improving it. And we've done a lot of changes on the IT systems. Last year, one of the big changes last year is we took paper out of the organisation because that's one of the ways in which we can reduce the possibilities for rent seeking. And
fraud,
yes.
corruption, theft.
And jumping the queue, we call it. And but a lot of change in an organisation, certainly in the public sector, always brings its challenges with it. So.
How should Tlotliso's application have worked? He should have filed an application. Let's say, for example, he goes online this afternoon and does a fresh application. How, in the ideal world, should it function?
In an ideal world, he should apply. His turnaround time on this transaction should not exceed 5 working days. If it exceeds 5 working days, you need to log a query on the website. If you don't get a response,
a big red button on the website. It's easy enough
called
to see.
inquiries, and he did not see it. So I think one of the things we do need to do is do more user testing on the website. But then after 10 days, if his query is not responded within 10 days, then he needs to escalate it. We have an internal ombud in the organisation, and that email either goes through to the ombud or people send emails to me.
Okay,
and
so
that's how we deal with it.
Where is his problem sitting at the moment then?
He has not logged a query. So what we need to do is we need to go and investigate.
Because you made a phone call.
Yeah.
Silly man.
Yeah. Well, we did advertise, don't call, send us an email.
So for me, the phone was the nearest thing to do.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that's the natural response. And, much as we have wanted to change people's behaviour out there, I think we realise that that's the part we need to be accessible. Because if you are electronically, if your strategy is to be electronic, which ours is, you do need to be accessible.
But in a society like South Africa, are we sufficiently electronic? I mean, the mobile devices today, incredible, smartphones are cheaper than they ever have been. Is SIPS not ahead of its potential customers, potentially?
Well, we have two models. And our strategy has been to increase the number of channels that people have. So we have the website, we have FNB, where you can register.
Could you go into a branch and physically do it? Because they don't like you doing anything in a branch either.
They don't like you doing it in a branch, but they do assist you in a branch. But essentially, it's also an electronic process. But what you can do there is you can open your bank account and register your company at the same time. Actually, if you had a name, with an approved name reservation, what you could do today with that name reservation, if you want to use that name, is just, unless you already have a bank account, is apply through FNB. It should take about 3 days to get the company registered and the bank account opened.
Hey, you never thought it would, this one tweet having a go at Astrid.
He wants to change his name, you see. So that's the complication.
Yeah.
See, the nice thing, and one thing that I really appreciate about CIPC is they've made things very easy for us. You would, long ago, you would go to Pretoria and follow a long queue and register their paperwork and everything, but now it's a bit easier, which I really appreciate.
Yeah. No, but all it's got to do, though, it's got to have a follow-through. Astrid, we have to leave it there. I'm sorry. But could you do this? Could you give it to Home Affairs for passports and ID books and ID cards, please? Because they could be the next ones to go electronic. We don't like the queues at Home Affairs either. With respect, Minister. That was the Commissioner at the CIPC, that SIPS, Astrid Ludin, and Tlotliso Mphuthi, who has now got direct access to Astrid Ludin. Right? He is from OakGrove Investment Holdings, but he will be soon once it's properly registered. Thanks for watching. There'll be more tonight, tomorrow. Till then, good night and goodbye.